Welcome to Whachacha's Tabletop World, a channel devoted to the love of board gaming. My name is Sweetness Whachacha, and today we're looking at Nekojima. This is my overview and my thoughts on it. Okay, so this is a dexterity game for 1 to 5 players. You can play competitively or you can play cooperatively. Now, the fun little thing about this is that it is based on this island. Ojima is island and Neko is cat, so it's Cat Island. There's an island in Japan with 20 people living on it, and there are 120 cats. Isn't that insane? So that's so fun. Tourists love to go there, of course, and there's some, a little bit of a difficulty there because of the, they don't want to lose their identity. And which seems to be a very ineffective strategy. They have 10 of the cats have been spayed. Now, I'm no mathematician, but I would imagine that that's not the best number that you could hope for. Okay, the game is pretty simple. I'm going to explain both versions, and then we'll touch on some of the other modes you can play in. Turns are pretty simple. You're going to roll the dice. Okay, so in this example, I've got purple and blue. That means I would have to put a power line in the purple and blue sections. All right. Then the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to pull a cube. Okay, and that's going to tell me which color pole that I can take. So red is the shortest poles, white are the middle length, and then the blue are the longest length of power line. So this is meant to represent, the poles and telephone poles and the power line. So in this case, it says white, so I'd have to take one of the whites. So let's say I took this one here. Most of them are a longer and a shorter, although there are some very, way shorter, etc. So the only rules are you cannot handle it by the power line. You have to take it by these. You can't wrap it like that, and you can't place them so that the power line goes over this over the side. So in this case, I've got purple and blue. Very easy to do since I've just started. This would go in here to show the level. We'll get more into that in a minute. And then it would be the next player's turn. So the next player would roll out. Okay. If you get this black symbol, then that means that the player to your left will pick, what district it is. And of course, they're going to pick something that's very difficult for you. So let's say I drew this. Okay, that means that's a cat. So I would keep drawing until I get a color. And then I would keep drawing until I get a color. Okay, well, that's pretty crazy. Okay, so now I would hang on to these, and every single turn I would have to do something with them. So this says red. I will take, let's say the person to my left said orange, okay, for whatever reason. Now you can place them on top like this, and of course you will have to do so after a while. This will kind of continue to build up. And then I would have to place a cat. Now, so there's a bunch of these cats here. It's Cat Island. These will go in here, as I said. And you'll pick a cat. So let's say I took this one. I would have to place it on any red power line. So I could place it on if there's another red one without a cat, so only one cat per power line. And you know what? I probably should have taken this one instead because this is close to the ground. The cat can't touch the ground, and it can only be touching one power line. And again, the power lines can't touch each other as well, if I hadn't mentioned that. So you're going to go on like this for a while. Everybody's going to keep, stacking the place more higher and higher until the whole structure falls, and that's when you will that player will lose the game. All other players will win the game. Okay, so now let's talk a little bit about the idea of the cooperative game. Well, the cooperative game plays exactly the same in a way. So if you had 4 players, 1 player will lose and 3 players will win. In the cooperative game, well, all players will, win or win better. There's no real way to lose the game. And that's where we take a look at this. So with this does keep track to see how many levels you would get on a competitive game, but it's not really necessary in a competitive game. It just shows you how far you're getting. But in the cooperative version, you're just trying to get a better score. So over the course of the game, you're going to be filling these up. And so if now the structure fell, we would say, okay, well, we made it to 3. And so the goal is to get a perfect game to be filling up all of the, up to 7. So you're just going to score the game based on how well you did, how many lines you covered. I do also want to, before I go, mention a couple things about these cats. Some of them, you can see, are quite easy to hang. They have little hooks on their tails, very cute. Then there's the nightmare cats. Like, I don't even know how these two are impossible. I think once you get to them, it is very, very difficult. This guy also seems to be basically impossible. You're probably just going to pull down whatever you're trying to do. Even in the best of circumstances, it seems quite hard to get them on there. We call them nightmare cats. Okay, so what do I think of the game? Well, always I like to talk about the components and theme first. Let's first tackle the theme. Nekojima, very, very cool, very exciting. I'm a big cat lover. I always say that my wife and I would not win the Crazy Cat People Award, but we would place. That's my little joke. So we love cats. I did not know about this place, and this is one of the things I love about board gaming and stuff, is that you learn things, and I'm like, island sounds amazing. In Japan now, I want to go there. Really, really cool, wonderful little theme, and I think very approachable. As far as the components go, I do like the fact that they chose, now this is a dexterity game, and so, dexterity games are often, you don't want to make the same dexterity game over and over again, right? So let's talk a little bit about dexterity, and then I'll talk more about the components. So dexterity games, I love like the more gamery ones, like Junkar, and they've got long flat pieces, taller pieces, heavier pieces, and the mix and match there, it was very well thought of in terms of how you can stack them and stuff. So they want to make a lot of variety there. Then you got like Jenga, everything's the same. You're just kind of like worrying about the physics of will this tower stand. So this is kind of an interesting way to go about it, because it is, there's the different lengths. So, not only can you put them farther apart, on the board, but you can also think like, well, this is a very long, I have a very long one here. So maybe I'll go vertically. I'll put something on top and down below. So you're getting that using the line vertically rather than horizontally, or something in between there. And you can also kind of turn them a little bit. You can kind of do that. You cannot wrap it around itself, but you can kind of like curve the lines a little bit like this, which is an interesting strategy. So the pieces do stand on top of each other quite well, and it is kind of cool to decide, like should I go higher, or should I try to, stack on top? And so there are a surprising amount of choices in there. Now, when we first played it, I said I was going to talk about the dexterity. Let's talk about that now. So the thing about dexterity games that I like is that they're not like automatically party games, but they do kind of feel like that, because dexterity games, most people can play them. Now, there are some disabilities and things that would preclude certain people to play them, but for the most part, dexterity games ignore age, and they ignore the idea of gamer and non-gamer, which makes them super approachable, and it lands them in that kind of party game-ish category. Dexterity, like if a kid, you can sometimes have the same ability, or even better than an adult who has a little sharper eye, smaller hands, whatever. So I feel like, and the adult, maybe the strategy is a little more clear to them. So this is the kind of game that feels light enough. There's enough choice where I like it, but I feel like you can bring it out in a very mixed crowd, which is important and good. And I think the theme really lends itself to make people be like, oh, wow, and learn a little bit about that island, which I think is really cool. Now, the the cooperative version, almost the same, really. I mean, essentially, if you're playing 4 players, 3 players win, 1 player loses. You're playing cooperatively, all 4 players are winning. It really seems very happenstance. I mean, there is a little bit of take that, where you can kind of, try to, if you get to pick, you can try to mess over your opponents. But I actually quite like the cooperative version better, actually, because, when I first played this, played it a couple times, thought, okay, it doesn't really seem to make much difference what I pick or where I put it. It seems, they just kind of fall anyway. But like any good game, you develop a strategy, and you start to understand how the pieces work together. And I really like that aspect of it, kind of learning about it a little bit. I mean, it's not like a ton to learn, but it's kind of neat to work on like the idea of like, we have a playthrough on the channel, my wife and I actually, and to say like, okay, well, let's kind of group them together in such a way, and kind of go out, and when to go up, when to kind of try to feed one through. And so I think that's kind of interesting, and just going for that high score. Very interesting. And then the cat part of it, if you get a cat in the competitive way, well, that's kind of bad, because that's just an extra chance that you have of knocking something over, which is terrible. In the cooperative version, it kind of has a good and bad, because it's adding to that stack. Your score is going up faster, which is almost better, because the more pieces you get on the board, more likely you're going to knock something over. However, if you get too many of the cats, you get to the nightmare cats that are really, really impossibly hard to put on there, and you're probably just going to end the game. So it's something fun to shoot for. I think both versions, I could take either one. I mean, they both have their strengths and weaknesses, but you can kind of judge, the crowd that you're working with. Hey, let's work together, or maybe it'll be a little more fun, because this is the kind of thing like it's fun to do. You're like, oh, let me try to make it happen, but then when it falls, that's fun too. It's such a fast game to play. I do like the little variants and things that they have on here, kind of cool. Like, it doesn't really matter, but just to be like, hey, let's try the skyscraper one. Okay, cool. Everybody's kind of done, and you think like, well, before we finish, let's try like going as high as humanly possible with the skyscraper. it just adds a little bit of fun. Not really that big of a deal, but I always like when there's a little extra things in the box like that that don't really change the game too much, like, or they don't add a lot of cost to the game but value. You don't really use these nests in the game, in the regular game, so it seems kind of interesting that they would include them for the variants. Yeah, all in all, super fun theme, really well made, pretty inexpensive game, quick to play. I think my party game thing has always got to be easy to learn, quick to play, and quick to set up. And I think all of those work together with this game. Like I say, the theme is super approachable and fun. It does have some strategy to it, and it is approachable for non-gamers and gamers alike. So I think all in all, this is a pretty big win for me. I don't think it's my favorite. It's definitely not my favorite of the dexterity games, but I think it's a super fun little game to try and to bring to a group. So hopefully that helped you to decide whether or not this game is for you. You can watch my full playthrough on here of the cooperative mode with my wife. But for now, I gotta roll.